The NFL season is now hitting that wild midseason stretch where trades and last-minute pickups can make or break a team's shot at glory.
The two-time defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs are finalizing a trade for DeAndre Hopkins.
How about we break it all down and find out who's gearing up for success and who's currently headed straight for disaster. Success: Houston Texans sign Devin White. The Houston Texans are atop a weak AFC South, but Houston has bigger aspirations than merely winning their division this year. Thus, enter Devin White. The Texans signing White wasn't about filling a hole in the roster, it was about turning up the heat on the rest of the AFC. Look, White isn't just another linebacker you bring in for a few extra tackles. He's a guy who, when he plays at his best, can completely transform the defense. This is the dude who was all over the field for Tampa Bay when they won the Super Bowl back in 2020. Not only did he rack up 140 tackles that season, but he also added 9 sacks, forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, whatever it was, you name it. Yeah, that sounds like something that Houston could use if you ask me. But 2020 was a long time ago, and White hasn't played his best football as of late. But you know, he's only 26, and for good reason. D'Amico Ryans just seems to believe that White could be the missing piece to make this a truly championship caliber defense. So if you're a Texans fan, this signing could have you feeling pretty good about what's to come. Adding White is the kind of power move that can tip the scales in close games and get Houston into serious contention mode. Disaster: Las Vegas Raiders sign Desmond Ridder. The Las Vegas Raiders signing Desmond Ridder to solve their quarterback woes? Ooh, tough scene. Ridder is a former third-round pick who had multiple shots to make it work in Atlanta, and, well, all he managed to do was disappoint in many ways. And I don't know why, but for some reason, the Raiders expect him to be a potential option under center since Aiden O'Connell went on the IR. But let's be real here. This does not feel like the magic fix. Raiders fans, please do not expect any miracles here if he gets slotted in for Gardner Minshew at some point. This move has all the makings of a desperation play, and Antonio Pierce simply cannot feel good about his team heading into the back half of his first year as a full-time head coach if this is what they have lined up. Success: Kansas City Chiefs trade for DeAndre Hopkins. Now, this is a great example of how championship-caliber organizations make championship-caliber moves. DeAndre Hopkins, a 3-time All-Pro with 7 1,000-yard seasons under his belt, is now headed to Kansas City. This guy has seen it all, caught it all, and probably dreamed about winning it all. Well, now he finally gets another legitimate shot at some real January football. Hopkins has been one of the best receivers in the league for a decade, but you know, he's never really been on a team with a true shot at a deep playoff run. So when the Tennessee Titans shipped him off to the Chiefs, Hopkins didn't just get traded, he got the opportunity that he's been waiting for. I mean, he's already said it. I think just playing meaningful football in January is what's left on the list. The trade couldn't come at a better time for Kansas City, who's dealing with injuries across the board in their receiving core. Juju Smith-Schuster is out with a sore hamstring, Sky Moore is on IR, and Rashee Rice is likely out for the season. Hopkins gives them a guy who can step right in as a seasoned veteran who knows exactly how to handle the spotlight. And if you're Mahomes, you've gotta be thrilled about having Hopkins' insane catch radius in the mix. Disaster: New Orleans Saints sign Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Gotta be honest, I'm not sure what the New Orleans Saints are thinking with this move. The Saints think that they can revive Marquez Valdes-Scantling's career with Derek Carr at the helm? Come on, New Orleans. What are you thinking? I mean, this guy couldn't make it work in any of his last 3 stops with Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen throwing him the football. And now the Saints think that he's gonna thrive in their system? Yeah. Okay. Valdes-Scantling had a promising start in Green Bay, but he's since been something of a journeyman. Short stints with the Chiefs, a quick stop in Buffalo, and now he's headed to the Saints. He's just collecting stamps in his NFL passport, but leaving nothing but mediocre stat lines in his wake. Over 6 seasons, he's racked up 188 receptions, 3,181 yards, and 16 touchdowns. Yeah, it's pretty decent, but for a supposed deep threat, he is far from reliable. Buffalo let him go after picking up Amari Cooper, and now New Orleans is hoping that he can somehow resurrect his career here? I don't know, that just feels like wishful thinking. Because, come on, even before Cooper's arrival, Valdes-Scantling found a tough time cracking the Bills' pass-catching rotation, catching just 2 of his 9 targets for 26 yards. So Saints Jets fans, don't get your hopes up that this is going to revitalize this offense because it probably isn't. Success? Buffalo Bills trade for Amari Cooper. Cooper has had his ups and downs, sure, but his upside is undeniable, and it's hard to argue that he's not a proven WR1. The Pro Bowl receiver needs to clean up the drops that have plagued him this season, but considering he is no longer catching passes from Deshaun Watson for an absolutely terrible Browns team, I have to think that he'll be able to find the motivation to focus. He'll be a massive addition to Buffalo's offense, and he is already showing it. Right out the gate, he made his presence felt. It's like he walked into Buffalo and immediately hit the ground running. Disaster? New York Jets trade for Davante Adams. The Jets think that they're hunting a deep playoff run, but the reality is that they're going nowhere fast. Despite a 2-4 start, the Jets decided to finalize a deal and a coaching change in hopes of turning their season around. After all, this was a team that came into the season with hopes of not just winning the AFC East in the conference, but a Super Bowl too. But fact of the matter is that Aaron Rodgers is looking way too old, this team has way too many holes, and this season is far too gone for this trade to be successful. For a conditional third-round pick, the Jets are taking a low-risk chance on an aging receiver with an expensive contract. But the idea is that Adams is going to bring back some of the Green Bay magic as he is reunited with Aaron Rodgers. But let's be real. That is not gonna happen with the way that this organization functions. Adams has 2 years left on his current contract, which made many people across the league wonder how much the Raiders would get in return. So at least they can take the offseason to really try and get it right, but man, this one just feels like it has all the makings of a complete disaster. Especially if Aaron Rodgers and the Jets end up falling out of love while Adams is still under contract. Success? Seahawks trade for Ernest Jones. The Seattle Seahawks have made a couple of interesting midseason moves, but perhaps none more so than at linebacker, acquiring fourth-year pro Ernest Jones IV from the Tennessee Titans for seventh-year LB Jerome Baker and a fifth-round NFL draft pick. The Seahawks have allowed the fifth most rushing yards per game at just over 146 heading into Week 8. And with Jones' skill set and his familiarity with McDonald's defense, as Tennessee runs a version of it under coordinator Dennard Wilson, he should be extremely valuable in changing that for the Seahawks. Jones might not be quite a household name, yet the Seahawks aren't looking for a superstar. They just want a professional who could hold the middle and stop the bleeding, and this is undoubtedly a move that could shore up their defense just in time for a postseason push. Disaster. Minnesota Vikings trade for Cam Akers. I don't know what it is about Cam Akers that keep teams interested in him, but man, I don't know. This guy really just leaves a lot to be desired. When the news broke that the Texans were sending Akers and a 2026 conditional 7th-round pick to the Minnesota Vikings in exchange for a 2026 conditional 6th-round pick, there were plenty of surprised faces around the league. I mean, yeah, it made sense for Houston. That Texans team already has Joe Mixon and Dameon Pierce in the backfield, meaning that Akers was more like clutter rather than depth. But boy, is it hard to understand why the Vikings bothered to trade for Akers. He's never really been able to string together any sort of consistent performances and always seems to leave his teams wanting more. I could see them wanting some depth behind the veteran Aaron Jones, who's battled some injuries this year, but it seems like there had to be better options available either via trade or even off the scrap heap. Success? Seattle Seahawks trade for DT Roy Robertson-Harris. Seattle has been dealing with injuries on the D-line, and the timing could not be better for Roy Robertson-Harris to join the mix. This guy is an experienced veteran who can disrupt the pocket and bring some stability to a banged-up front. And what, the Seahawks only had to part with a 6th-round pick for him? Yeah, that's not too bad. It'll be particularly interesting to see how Mike Macdonald, who is one of the most impactful defensive coordinators in the game the past couple of seasons prior to taking the head coaching gig in Seattle, is going to be able to leverage Robert Harris's talents. But in any case, I think it's safe to assume that the Seahawks are likely going to be happy buyers coming out of the fire sale down in Jacksonville that came as a result to the Jaguars' disastrous start of the season. After all, he's got the potential to give Seattle's defense some real grit. With guys like Byron Murphy and Uchenna Nwosu sidelined, adding a player of his caliber could be huge as they try to stay on top of a wide-open NFC West. Disaster. Tennessee Titans trade for Jerome Baker. The Seahawks acquired Ernest Jones IV from the Titans in exchange for Jerome Baker and a 2025 4th-round draft pick and a swap of inside linebackers. Seattle, as we mentioned, has plenty of reason to be excited. But Tennessee, who in that same week also gave up DeAndre Hopkins, not so much. Keep in mind, this is the second time Meantime, Jones, 24, has been traded this year, making the move for the Titans, who acquired him from the Rams in August. Trading for Jerome Baker might have felt like a quick fix for the Titans defense as they try to recoup some draft capital in the last season. But man, does this move have red flags all over it. Especially if Ernest Jones begins to really thrive in Mike McDonald's defense out in Seattle. But hey, which NFL midseason acquisition do you think will be the biggest success? Which one do you think's gonna be the biggest failure? What do you think we got wrong here? What do you think we got right? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, then clicking that like button helps us out a ton. And you know, we really appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.